Welcome, everyone. You are listening to Get Out of Your Own Way with me, April Yee, on Transformation Talk Radio. Get out of your way and get what you want through transformative self-care. I'm here to support you in getting out of your own way. So what does getting in your own way look like? Well, how about letting other people define your value and worth, ignoring your body by not taking care of yourself, and people-pleasing? These are just a few ways I've gotten in my own way. In this show, I'll share new perspectives on self-care practices so you can discover options and choices for expanding what's possible for you and your life. In each episode, I have questions for you, and when you take the time to answer them, they'll help in building up your belief about yourself. I believe that when we get good with ourselves, we get good with our lives and the world. Get Out of Your Own Way starts now. Hi, everyone. I'm April Yee, and you are listening to Get Out of Your Own Way on Transformation Talk Radio, Episode 1. Each episode, I'll share some thoughtful ideas about self-care, helping you expand what's possible for you and your life. And these things are things that I wish I had learned sooner to support myself and get out of my own way. So I hope these ideas are coming to you when you need them. There's a Brené Brown quote from her book, The Gifts of Imperfection, that relates to what I'll be talking about today. So I'll share it now. Here's what is true at the heart of wholeheartedness. Worthy now, not if, not when. We are worthy of love and belonging now, right this minute, as is. So today I'm talking about how in 2015, the universe realigned my life. I had been living in New York City for 3 years after jumping at the opportunity to move there from San Francisco when my company made the offer. I'd been with this private equity firm for 7 years at that point and was really enjoying the perks of working there. I had the means to have and do what I wanted. I felt proud of the prestige, challenge, and perceived success of my job. So I made my job my priority by chaining myself to my desk most days, working long hours and going into the office on the weekends. I worked hard because it was the only way I knew how. And maybe you can relate to this. For as long as I can remember, I had this strong sense of responsibility to support myself and prove that my life was worth something. And maybe it came from being the oldest child in a Chinese American family, knowing how hard my grandparents worked as immigrants and how hard my parents worked to raise and support three children on their own. But when was it that I began tying my sense of self-worth and self-value to accomplishment, achievement, success, and performance? My will and determination developed around these ideas, and I needed to be reliable, not let people down, and shoulder the responsibility. So I pushed myself hard and expected things from myself that went beyond above and beyond what others might expect from me. It was a way to show that, yes, I'm needed. Yes, I'm worthy. And yes, I deserve to be here. I gave others the power to determine what my value was and how I felt about myself. But at what cost? Well, the costs presented themselves when my health declined during my 3rd year working in New York. I had injured my back and was in a lot of pain, but I forced myself to keep working, feeling the pressure to perform for my team as usual. And because I didn't allow myself to heal properly, that injury affected my whole body. I had less energy and eventually felt too depleted to keep up with the grueling pace that I'd taken on at work. I knew I had to make a big change to take care of my health and well-being. And I also wanted to find something more creative and meaningful to do. So after 10 years of being with my company, I decided to quit. And it actually felt like standing up for myself. The costs presented themselves again a couple months after I quit my job when the back injury resurfaced and caused so much pain, it kept me in bed for most days for over a month. And even though I wasn't working at that time, I wasn't sure how to take care of myself. Can you tell I was really disconnected from my body? But I did the best I could. And after a month, even though my back felt better, I started to feel weaker and developed a constant cough. Even then, I still flew back to San Francisco for what I thought would be a 2 week vacation to visit family and friends. But my symptoms got worse, and all I could do was lie on the couch at my parents' house at that time. Taking a shower felt like running a mile. And I still had no idea what was going on with me, but I canceled my flight back to New York. And 2 weeks after that, when I finally saw the right doctor and got the right blood test done, I was called into the ER the next day. And the phone call went like this: "We found bacteria in your blood and need to administer IV antibiotics to you. There might also be something going on with your heart. Please come to the ER." And disconnected from my body, me asks, "Do I have to come in today?" Because I had plans for friends to come visit me. The doctor on the other end said in disbelief, "Well, yes, this is rather urgent." At that time, I still had the mindset that other people and things came first before me. So, with some resistance, I let my friends know what was going on and had my parents drive me to the ER. I was checked in immediately and started on the IV antibiotics. And a couple different doctors came to talk to me and my mom. And after a few hours, I was admitted to the hospital. As my parents left, I felt so guilty and scared. And I said to them in tears, "I'm sorry for causing you to worry," because I felt like this was my fault. And they also left feeling unsure what would happen and probably even more worried and scared than I was. Over the next couple days in the hospital, I went through a slew of tests, including CT scans, MRIs, X-rays, echocardiograms, a blood transfusion, and something called a transesophageal echocardiogram. And later, with my parents in the room, the doctors told me what happened. The blood infection I contracted led to something called endocarditis, and the bacteria in my blood had vegetated on my heart and ate up two of my heart valves. My heart was failing. They'd need to perform emergency open heart surgery on me within the next couple days. And can you imagine what went through my mind after hearing this? The surgeon described my heart valves as being moth-eaten, which is how the bacteria had damaged them. I was feeling so poorly by that point, having trouble breathing, still feeling really weak, and basically being in physical survival mode that I accepted everything they told me and what would have to happen next. There was really no time for considerations or to worry about the outcomes. I just knew I needed to do this for my life. So on April 24th, 2015, I underwent emergency open heart surgery, where my surgeon ended up working for an unexpected 11 hours on a mission to save my life. And luckily, he was successful. I can't really tell you about the first 24 to 48 hours after the surgery because I was still intubated on a lot of drugs and was in and out of consciousness. The surgery had taken place on a Friday, and when visitors came to see me on a Monday, I told them to have a good weekend when I was saying goodbye to them. I was still at last Friday, and I felt like I'd been hit by a truck. And I probably don't need to tell you that open heart surgery is intense. So I ended up spending a month in the hospital recovering. And during that time, I developed pneumonia. I had my right lung drained of a liter of fluid, which was not a fun process at all. I practiced how to walk again, and I lost 20 pounds because the IV antibiotics I was still on stole my appetite away. My parents were at the hospital every day, and I had visits from other family members and friends. And because I still had part of my life in New York two of my friends graciously offered to fly there to take on the monumental task of moving me out of my apartment because we knew I wouldn't be going back there anytime soon. And I couldn't even really process what that meant. Each day I was living hour by hour, just physically surviving. And I think because all my energetic resources were going to healing and recovering physically, there was little left for mental or emotional use. And so when I was finally discharged from the hospital and back home at my parents' house, I was basically like a child again. I was sleeping, eating when I could, watching TV, seeing visitors when I was able to, and being cared for by my parents until I was physically strong enough to shower and get around again on my own. And that took about 3 months to really regain a sense of independence. But surviving and recovering were just the beginning. From my previous way of thinking, I thought I needed to be on a certain time frame to heal and to get back to living my life again. I felt unproductive and I had been used to working my whole adult life. And there I was thinking about how I would start working again. I made some mistakes that contributed to how I was recovering because I didn't have the wisdom or guidance of a peer who'd gone through something similar. And it was only when my acupuncturist finally scolded me when he realized I was trying to live my life like before and do too much. He said I'd been given a second life and I needed to take care of it, make my body and my health my priority. But I felt resistant even then, thinking I could still do what I used to do. About 7 months after the surgery, I had a breakdown moment while talking to a friend in New York about my ideas for working again, because for the first time, I finally realized and acknowledged my new physical capabilities and that I wouldn't be able to go back to living the life I lived before, where I thought I had things figured out, where I felt successful because I could will myself to accomplish, achieve, and hustle to support myself. And there was loss associated with that because who was I now? That version of me no longer existed. I hadn't realized how strongly I had attached my identity to being able to work at a certain level. So I had to grieve and mourn the loss of who I had been. And after that realization, I knew I needed to talk to someone about what I was going through. Even though I was used to figuring things out on my own, there was no question. This felt too big. And through the power of synchronicity, a massage therapist that I used to see in New York gave me the contact information for a therapist in San Francisco. And this therapist turned out to be exactly the person I needed at that time. During our sessions together, my therapist and I talked about redefining what success looked like for me now and where my idea of success had even come from. I'd never questioned that before, so those conversations revealed a lot. We talked about authenticity and vulnerability, shedding the armor I was used to wearing and didn't even know I had until then, and letting go of the unrealistic expectations I had of myself and of others, letting go of the agenda I imposed upon my body without checking in with it. I even started working through an underlying thought pattern that crept in whenever something didn't work out the way I thought I wanted. And that was, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. I had allowed that thought to defeat me for so long. I had used it unknowingly to get in my own way because I also wanted to prove it wrong. And in order to prove it wrong, I needed to have something to balance out the perceived failures. And because I tied my self-worth to performance, I kept the responsibilities piled on top of my shoulders as a way to outrun not feeling good enough. But again, I kept getting in my own way like that. which leads me to the first of the three initial foundational lessons I learned after emergency open heart surgery. I learned to listen to and honor my body. In the past, my will and determination always took the lead and dragged my body along behind it. This looked like showing up for work when I was in pain, or going out for drinks after work, even though I was exhausted, or volunteering at an event when I could have used that time to rest, or even putting off seeing the doctor because it meant missing time from work. I disregarded pain or exhaustion and pushed through it when I could. And if I did take time off work to take care of myself, I always ended up feeling guilty because I thought I was letting other people and myself down, or I was missing out on something. And maybe you can relate to that. But after the surgery, my body had to take priority. My new 100% was like my old 75 or 80%. And once I accepted that recalibration, I learned how to slow down, familiarize myself with my body and its signals, and check in with it first. I learned how to ask the questions: at what cost? And what can I do to take care of myself in this moment? And when the answer comes, I give myself permission to listen to and honor it. It could mean deciding to sleep in instead of going to the gym, or remembering to breathe deeply, or canceling evening plans after an unexpectedly tiring day at work. And instead of being disconnected and separate from my body as if it was an inconvenience, I saw how valuable my body is by allowing me to do things out in the world, to do what I'm meant to do, experience, and learn. And this might seem silly now, but I recognize my responsibility for taking care of my body. Connecting with it, listening to my body, and honoring my body is a choice for health and healing, and it protects my energy. Which brings me to the second lesson I learned about boundaries. I learned how to set and maintain boundaries around my energy and time. Setting and maintaining boundaries is about taking care of myself. And setting boundaries means being aware of what I'm okay with and what my limits are. Maintaining boundaries involves communicating those limits with others and working to honor them for myself. And part of that is listening to my body, and part of it is having more realistic expectations of myself. In the past, I would automatically say yes to requests from people, be it social, professional, or nonprofit related. I would even volunteer myself when it seemed like no one else wanted to, even if I was already overextended. And now, because I need to protect my health and energy more, I make more informed decisions. So before responding to a request or invitation, I spend time checking in with myself. How does this fit into my life? What value might I gain? How does my body or energy feel? And what else might need to be considered? And then I can make a more informed decision about spending energy and time instead of an automatic response driven by unrealistic expectations or the need to perform or the fear of disappointing others. Does that sound familiar? In the past, I thought asking for help was a weakness. I thought I was supposed to be able to do everything on my own, be competent, self-sufficient, strong, and independent. So I didn't ask for help because I didn't want to be seen as less than any of that. I recognize now how unhealthy that way of thinking was. And now, because I have more realistic expectations of myself, I'm more comfortable voicing what I can and can't do to manage expectations. I know that asking for support when I truly need it is not a weakness. It's a responsible choice. I'm honoring my boundaries, and I can still take pride in what I do. So I learned how to set and maintain boundaries around my energy and time so that I can be fully present for what I'm doing and who I'm with. And instead of being hard on myself, I can offer myself empathy for having realistic expectations and knowing my limits, which leads me to the third lesson about kindness. I learned how to be kinder to myself. We can be so mean to ourselves. The things we tell ourselves, the comparisons we make, the expectations we have of ourselves and think others have of us, it's no wonder why we never feel good enough. And people talk about self love and loving yourself, but how do we even do this? I believe in order to truly love ourselves, we first need to learn how to be kinder to ourselves. And for me, this means being aware of the things I say to myself about myself, the thoughts that run around in my mind. And for me, these thoughts boil down to I'm not good enough. But for others, it might be I'm bad or I'm wrong or I'm a burden or I'm to fill in the blank. In Kid Power, which is a nonprofit organization I volunteer with, we teach the Kid Power trash can, where we can throw away mean words that others say to us or that we say to ourselves. And there's a mini trash can where it's like you make a fist and your thumb is the lid of the trash can. And you can throw away words into that trash can. So with the trash can, I can throw away mean and self-defeating thoughts and replace them with affirming, compassionate statements. So if my underlying thought was, I'm not good enough, throw that away in the trash can and replace it with, I am enough. Or if a thought is, I'm so stupid for making that mistake, I can throw it away in the trash can and say, mistakes are part of learning. I also practice a simple exercise in self-kindness. It's simple and it's uncomfortable and it can feel hard at first, but I stand in front of the mirror and look myself in the eyes. Then I say, thank you. And you might be cringing a little when you hear this. And it was definitely uncomfortable for me when I first started this practice. But the more I did it, the more comfortable I got and the more I could receive and feel the gratitude I was giving myself. And so when I was comfortable saying thank you to myself, I practiced saying I love you to myself. And now this was super uncomfortable to say to myself at first. It felt unnatural and I wasn't even sure it was true. But I kept with it, and it's one of the most powerful ways to practice understanding what loving ourselves looks like and feels like. I feel connected with myself and grateful for what I see in the mirror now. I learned to be kinder to myself so that I can give myself permission to show up authentically and define what success means and looks like for me now. When we can first practice being kind to ourselves by diminishing self-judgment and self-criticism, it opens us up to offering the same grace to others. And then we can better love, support, empathize with, and empower those in our various communities and the communities which we'd like to create. And I know that therapy revealed more of myself to me and empowered me during this challenging period of my life. I learned to recognize and let go of the old version of me that was no longer serving me and embrace and accept who I was becoming. And in the past, I felt good about myself because of what I could do. Now I feel more fulfilled because of who I can be. By learning and practicing these 3 foundational lessons after heart surgery, I was able to understand and embody my authentic self, give myself permission to continually learn and grow, to accept what already is and be grateful for it while cultivating my desires for what's next and practicing being unattached to outcomes. And living like this empowers me to align with my purpose, continually heal, and live in joy and connection with myself, others, and the universe. In other words, I've learned even more how to get out of my own way because I recognized how I was getting in my own way. And so my message to you is that we can all start getting out of our own way by becoming aware of how we might be getting in our own way. We can discover our underlying beliefs that aren't serving us and create new beliefs. So where in your life can you redefine what success looks like for you? How can you start to connect to and listen to your body more? What boundaries do you want to start setting in your life? And in what small ways can you start being kinder to yourself? In future episodes, I'll be diving deeper into these topics and more to help you get out of your way and get what you want through these transformative self-care practices. I'm so glad you joined me for this episode of Get Out of Your Own Way. And to go even deeper, join me for Self-Care Sundays, weekly drop-in sessions. Find out more at thehealingmodalities.com. And you can also sign up for my weekly Self-Care Seeds newsletter there. Thank you for tuning in to Get Out of Your Own Way. Join me every other Thursday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Central, and 3:30 Pacific time. Next time on Get Out of Your Own Way, I'll be talking about the 3 pillars of transformative self-care. In the meantime, are you aware of how you think about yourself? What thoughts do you have about you? And do you like those thoughts? Have a great week, and I'll see you next time. You have been listening to Get Out of Your Own Way. Get out of your way and get what you want through transformative self-care with me, April Yee. Tune in every Thursday at 3:30 p.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio. In each episode, I present new questions that support you in building up your beliefs about yourself. To connect with me or for more information, you can email me at thehealingmodalities@gmail.com or visit my website, thehealingmodalities.com. See you soon.